rogue public transport culture is what we discussed this evening. And I do not know why we find ourselves tempted to say the rogue matatu culture, transport culture, which is actually not the case, because then we have very many components of the public transport sector. I know I took it away from you, but briefly, just allow me to loop in Dickson here, because then it's important that we get to understand where do we come from, because we are talking about the rogueness at that space of the road. I know we would want to say that we are reactionary in nature. That's the reason why we're having these conversations. At least for us, we're allowed to have conversations that revolve around what is making news. But why is it that it comes across as the SACCOs, the government, the law enforcement agents are always reactionary?
Well, first of all, let's understand where the matatu comes from.
Okay.
The background of the matatu. The matatu started without any rules and regulation.
Okay.
Way back in 1960s, 70s, 80s, 90s, up to 2000s. Okay. It's only after they were. You
guys can hear? Okay.
It's only when they were registered, officially recognized as the mode of public transport sector. That was 1985.
Okay.
Then from there now we start now being compliant with the then TLB, Transport Licensing Board Act Cap 4, before the NTSA came in 2012. And there were no specific really rules apart from the Traffic Act Cap 4.3, okay, which stipulates how a driver should be able to behave, how a conductor should be able to behave, right? Now, it has increasingly become very difficult really to permit the discipline in matatu operations. For one thing, they lack code of ethics. In other words, self-regulation. Okay. Which has been a problem really to introduce and enforce within the matatu industry. Because code of ethics is the bottom line for any discipline in any economic sector, whether it's manufacturing, whether it is transport, whether it is teaching, whatever it is, all around. Right. Yeah. And if the code of ethics can be able to find its place within the matatu SACCOs and the company's operations, I'm telling you, this behavior you see here will not be there. I'll give a very good example. Okay. Currently, as we're talking, there are 2 SACCOs within the town services. I'll mention one from Nairobi to Ngatarungai. That is Orokisa SACCO, which has really instilled self-regulation, fully compliance on the part of their crew.
Is that not what we imagined was happening with the likes of Super Metro? And I'm sure most of them will tell you that, hey, if it's not Super Metro, Misipandi.
I'm coming to where now, where people miss it, where Super Metro missed it, okay? The thing here is, self-regulation is the do's and the don'ts. And this complements the statutes. That's Traffic Act 4.3 NTSA Bill 2012 Act. The self-regulation in the form of code of ethics complements that. For example, a driver should not really drive when he's drunk. And
if these people can go against the laws, the Traffic Act that you're talking about, what makes you think the self-regulation or the code of conduct will work?
Let me explain to you how it works. Okay. The SACCOs themselves, and Lucy has really alluded to that, that when we lobbied for the SACCOs and company to be allowed in the matatu industry, that was for a long time until 2015 when it was allowed. Okay. It was expected the SACCOs and the companies would be able to regulate, their employees. In other words, all the employees of those units under the SACCOs or affiliated to the SACCO would be under the charge of the SACCO management and even companies. But what really happens now, every vehicle owner affiliated to that SACCO employs their own drivers. Okay? So in other words, the SACCO is not in charge, or the company is not in charge. But you find that the town services is where this problem is. Inter-counties between Nairobi, Nakuru, Nairobi, Meru, Nairobi, Kisumu, Nairobi, Machakos is totally different. There you have total control. You have discipline, you have the self-regulation, such that if a driver violates or if a driver mistreats the commuter, the action is taken, discipline, 14 days, 30 days, thereafter you are dismissed.
Let me